In my last video, I introduced you to this series called Wargaming in a Weekend. It showed you an easy way to try out wargaming by 3D printing 2 armies that had already been created for you. In this video, I'm going to show you how to build and create your own proxy army via 3D printing by creating a demon proxy army of my own. And before we get too far into the actual 3D printing, I need to lay out some ground rules so that we can know what we're actually doing here. For this video and most of the ones in the future involving this topic, because it's my favorite system, we're going to be making an army for the tabletop wargame Warhammer Age of Sigmar by Games Workshop. It's very similar to a lot of other fantasy and sci-fi wargames out there in that you design your army based on a point-based system, and it's all about measurements on the table and dice rolling. Because measurements on the table for movements and attacks are required to be so precise, models or miniatures like this don't actually matter at all. No, what matters are the bases that the models are attached to. At least for Age of Sigmar, you wouldn't measure if you're in range of attacking with this Hell Knight based upon where their sword is. No, instead you'd measure from the edges of the base and move from the edges of the bases. Because of that, specific models have very specific base sizes. Typically, big boys are on big bases and small boys get small bases, but even then the shape of the base can change depending on the model. So when designing a proxy army to play with you and your friends at home, it's actually more important that you have the correct size bases than it is a similar looking model to the real deal. As far as the game is mechanically concerned, this super glue bottle or this toothpick on a base is just as valid as the Hell Knight. So the first thing I'm going to do is give you a bunch of resources so that you can make your own army easily or follow along if you want to. The first of which is essentially every base size in the game has been uploaded as a 3D print file by GoshXJoss on Thingiverse. Thanks, Gosh. They don't come pre-supported, but don't worry, I did a video on that and got you covered if you need to learn how. But these are simple shapes and should have no real problem printing with minimal supports. The second resource is a community-created list that lists every model in the game as of 2021 and their correct base size. Links to all of these resources will of course be in the description below. Now to the actual creation of an army. There's a billion different ways to get started, but here's what I do. I'm going to use Warhammer Community Army, or what Sigmar calls War Scroll Builder, to make my army. There are a ton of programs out there to do this, by the way, but this website's free and constantly updated by the community. Love it. I want to make a Blades of Khorne army, which is all these abyssal red demon things that are just rad as flippin' heck. So I just start picking units that I think are cool. I did some research into the units that I think would be fun, but any real Khorne player out there will probably laugh at my army. All of the stats for the units that you pick are available on the official Warhammer website as downloads for free, so just search your unit and War Scroll on Google and you'll most likely find it. Each unit of characters or models is worth a certain amount of points with a maximum of 2,000 points allowed. I have 2 3D printers going this weekend, so I'm going to be able to print a full 2,000 point army in one weekend, but with one printer and the army that I'm going to print, you might only be able to get 1,000 points in, but that's still a totally viable battle size. So boom, I've made my army and downloaded my War Scroll or army list, and it shows me how many models I need to get to print and organizes them by style of unit so that I can really plan out what I need to find. I gotta confess that I did specifically choose to make a demon army because I knew that Archvillain Games had a demon set coming in July, and I absolutely freaking love their designs. And since I support their Patreon already, I already had these models coming. But you can always find models on Thingiverse or My Mini Factory, etc. If you don't have any models that you want to use, I would have just searched up demons and found what I wanted from there if I didn't have these already. So my final army list consists of a Bellicor the Dark Master, 2 Chaos Sorcerer Lords, a Chaos Lord on a Daemonic mount, 6 Varangard, 20 Chaos Warriors, 10 Bloodletters, and a Slaughter Brute. I also have some Exalted Deathbringers as a backup in case I wanted to swap out my Chaos Sorcerer Lords. So let me show you images of and give you the names of the original models in the Khorne army, and then show you the models that I'm going to be swapping them out for. You'll notice that they look almost nothing alike. That's because the models aren't designed to, like in my last video. These are completely separate, but I think it's cool to be able to design your own style of army when you're doing a proxy. I mean, it's just for playing with friends anyway, so go nuts. As you can see in the background, I've now finished printing all of these and water curing them so I can show you the original Khorne army, how the renderings of these images look like, and so what I chose from, and then how they look like once they're printed. So for my battle line in the army, or my core units, I decided to make some Bloodletters into these Plagiethian Imps from Archvillain Games, or AVG. There were 4 different styles of imps and I needed 10 units, so I printed 2 of the units twice and 2 of the units 3 times. For the rest of my battle line, I did 2 units of 10 Chaos Warriors and replaced them with 3 of the Hellfire Inquisitor models from AVG. They kind of have a Tiefling Warrior look to them, and I stuck with the more melee-oriented models to replace the Chaos Warriors. Then I picked up 6 Varangard because I really like both the Games Workshop and the AVG models, and so these 6 Farangard turn into 3 of the 4 styles of Hell Knights. I only use 3 out of the 4 because 3 of them have their horse's hooves reared upwards and 1 of them has it aimed down, and I wanted to keep the downward aimed one for my Chaos Lord on Demonic Mount. This unit is a leader, so it's a direct 1 model to 1 model replacement for my Proxy, and because it has the downward aimed hooves, or as if this horse is falling downwards, it looks different enough from the other ones and I can give it a different paint scheme that I can tell this one apart from the other Hell Knights. I have 2 Chaos Sorcerer Lords and I'm replacing them with the Urian Infernal Scholar and the Agamar Infernal Warlock. Compared to all the other models, these are actually pretty tame, but I think that they look like great sorcerers. I 1000% added a Slaughter Brute to my army purely for the name and so that I can use this Carteroth model that definitely is not a pit fiend from the Warcraft franchise. This is one of the only 2 models that I actually had to use multiple print beds to print out on, and I had to glue pieces of it together. It's actually so big it won't stand up normally without me holding it down, which is hard when I'm trying to spin it and show it off, but it's kind of cool that they modeled it after my body. I also made 2 Exalted Deathbringer models out of the Horned Devils from AVG. I'm not going to talk about or show them very much because they're not in the main army, but if I ever wanted to swap out the Sorcerer Lords, I could with these. And finally, for my general, I've always been jealous of the people that have the Be'lakor model, but god dang if the Azrael model from AVG doesn't give it a run for its money. This is the other model that took 2 build trays to print on, and I had to glue all the pieces together, but gosh dang if this isn't the absolute best model I've ever 3D printed. I'm gushing over it, the texture on the pants all the way to the face that not only a mother could love, it forces everybody to love it. It's just awesome. Now all I need to do is print out all the base sizes for these that correspond to what I'm proxying, and bada bing bada boom, an army. And honestly, that's it. I have a 2000 point 41 model army with 4 changeable leaders, and because I stuck to 1 designer, it all kind of fits a similar style. There are bundles all over 3D printing file sites for specific styles of units from designers, so you could easily keep a cohesive style or branch out into something wacky and crazy. That's what proxies are for. They're for experimenting before you decide what army you really want to drop a lot of money on when you go play at your local game stores. Because obviously when you go play there, you should use Games Workshop models if you're playing Warhammer, or whatever company's models they sell if you're playing their game. But at home with friends, who cares in my opinion? Go ahead and make your toothpick proxy army. But if you are interested in the AVG stuff, this isn't like sponsored, but their Patreon has these files and new stuff each month for like $10. It's a crazy deal. And if you like the quality of the prints, I use the same Vulcan resin that I did in my previous video and an Elegoo Mars 2 mono printer. But again, all links like that will be in the description below. I hope that this video showed you how easy and fun it can be to design your own proxy armies and create something completely unique to play with your friends. What style army would you alter if you had to make a Sigmar proxy army? Let me know in the comments. Either way, thanks for watching. Consider subscribing so that you can catch future Wargaming in a Weekend videos, as well as other DIY content that I make. Like the video if you like it, dislike it if you disliked it. Either way, I hope that you have a fantastic day.